This is another slide from the book, The Strategy Focused Organization. This is really the causal chain and how learning and innovation will drive the ability for people to engage in better processes, and better processes help people serve the customer better, and better customer service drives revenue and your financial targets. Very loosely put, this is the causal chain. Sometimes it goes back and forth and round and round. This is not set in stone, that it always has to start with learning and innovation. Sometimes as we change our business processes and evolve our processes, that drives the need to learn, so it goes up the other way. And then once we've learned it, we're able to impact the customer better. So it goes from here up to here, down to there, and then ends up with the financial objectives being met or exceeded. So that's usually how the causal chain works within an organization. What's also important to notice here is this is how strategy maps are created. Strategy maps are taking a look at the different goals within the balanced scorecard and seeing what goals will drive the successful accomplishment of other goals. And this is usually how that flows. Doing that will really help you to determine what initiatives need to occur and in what order. Organizations usually don't have unlimited resources to do everything at once. And if you do, I want to talk with you. But they usually don't. So they have to decide on a priority in terms of their strategic initiatives. And this is really good for us to know, so that we know how to partner with the business more effectively and drive our value. Another thing that I wanted to point out is a typical, well, not a typical, but one way that we can present information to a senior team on the balanced scorecard. This is called a dashboard, and I took this from our product because we have the ability to create dashboards within our product. And in doing so, in one sheet of paper with specific dials that are color-coded, we can show where we are relative to each goal within each perspective of the balanced scorecard. So the first column is the customer perspective, and it shows the 3 goals in that perspective and where we are. You can tell on the dial where we are relative to each goal. The reason I bring this up is because the way that we want to communicate with the senior leaders, if we're not already doing so, is to be very succinct in our communications and very impactful. And this accomplishes both of those. Senior leaders don't want to sit there and read through a 100-page report to find out that our market position goal is in jeopardy. We're not escalating our market position as rapidly as we wanted to. They don't want to read through a huge report for that. They want to be able to see where we are in a snapshot. That's why I bring that up. So now, what do we do to link people to the strategy of the organization? If talent management is really about the people processes of the organization, and then people are the ones that drive the execution of strategy, then really what we do in talent management enables the execution of that strategy. So we play 2 key roles within an organization. One is the development of the strategy, and the other is in driving the execution of the strategy for each of the strategic initiatives that an organization has. So how do we do that? Well, we want to take a look at the balanced scorecard of the organization, take a look at the balanced scorecard of each of the different business units, if there is one, and see what are the strategic initiatives, the projects that have come off of that, and tie ourselves to those projects in some way through partnering with the owner of the project. In some cases, we're partnering with ourselves because we'll own certain strategic initiatives. In other ways, it might not be a direct tie to exactly what we do in HR. So we'll have to find who is in charge of that initiative and how can we help that person or people be successful. So to drive our value in the organization, it's not just sitting back and ensuring compliance. It's not saying, we did 300 training courses last year, woohoo, we're awesome. Because senior leaders will say, so what? What did that help us do? How did that contribute to our success? And was it really necessary to even do that? Or was it a waste of our money to do that and a waste of everyone's time? So tying ourselves specifically to initiatives is how we can really tangibly demonstrate our value. Moreover, when we do that, what we end up seeing down the road is that when the owner of that initiative is talking about the status or the completion of that initiative, especially around the success of an initiative, they're going to talk about the metrics behind that initiative, because those metrics are what impacts the goal that's within the balanced scorecard. And if they can communicate that we played a big part in that, then we're actually getting them to communicate our value for us. That's when you know you've hit the prize. When they're communicating our value for us, when we're not the ones as the senior leader having to say, this is what happened. We partnered with Joe Blow from sales, who is driving the specific initiative, and helped them be more successful. When they're doing that for us, then we know that we're in really good standing and our value is really implicitly recognized at that point. So I'm going to pause here for a moment and let you absorb that, but also want to find out what questions you may have, or if you've seen this work, or if you don't think this will work. I want to get your perceptions as well. Any ideas floating around?
One thing I think is the flexibility that has to remain within an organization, because especially in these times, we have a strategy, and certainly there are long-term elements or medium-term elements of that strategy which remain constant. However, due to the economic climate and due to some of the even higher focus on sales and so on, our immediate initiatives and our push for putting certain processes as well as some training goals forward to assist in the achievement of those initiatives had to be moved forward versus where they were normally in the strategy plan.
Yes.
So I think flexibility, just to add that piece, is very important to talk about, and that strategy isn't just a once every 5 years activity.
Yeah. And I think that's really especially true now that the economic climate is so uncertain. That uncertainty is really driving a lot of behaviors, and not all of them are good. I've seen a lot of companies that are successful today taking a wait-and-see approach, whereas if they were a little bit more contrarian, they could move forward faster because resources are less expensive now, especially where human resources are concerned. When we see high unemployment, we can get people at a better bargain. That's just one example. But also being flexible to the changing needs of the marketplace are key. Although this process appears that things are set in stone, how many of you have ever seen things actually set in stone? You know, things have to remain flexible, to your point. And they're fluid. I've often seen initiatives change midstream. Often. I mean, if you think that you start off with a specific strategic initiative and that at the end of the year you'll still be working on that same initiative in the same way towards the same goal, probably won't happen. So constantly being part of that business and helping drive the business forward is how we'll demonstrate our value. Being part of the decisions to change midstream and contributing our expertise to help decide when things need to change versus when we need to stay the course. That's really a key part of our value, I think. So what we're going to do is actually go over what typically happens first, and then we're going to get into an example. So the typical approach really is to demonstrate our value from the bottom up or from the back end up. So what that means is that we go to the senior leaders and say, we trained 500 people on these 3 different enterprise initiatives. Woohoo, we're successful. Are we successful? Or are we just counting butts and seats? That's the bottom-up approach, is butts and seats, and that's what gets us fired.